Have you ever had a moment that completely reframed how you see your own future? Let me tell you about my friend Arthur. Arthur is 72. He's not some frail, elderly stereotype. This is a man who, until 6 months ago, still split his own firewood. He'd been a carpenter his whole life, with the strong, worn hands to prove it. He had a laugh that could shake the windows and a handshake that could crush pecans. I visited him in the hospital after his fall. It wasn't a dramatic tumble down the stairs. He slipped on a wet leaf on his porch step. Just a misstep. A simple off-balance moment that every single one of us has had a dozen times. But this time, there was a sound. A sound he described not as a crack, but as a snap. Like a dry twig under a boot. His hip fractured, just like that. Sitting by his bed, the beeping of the monitors was the only thing cutting through his silence. He looked at me, and I'll never forget the confusion in his eyes. A deep, profound confusion that had nothing to do with the pain medication. He said, "I don't understand. I've always been so strong. How does a leaf do this?" The doctor came in later. He was kind but blunt. "Mr. Jenkins," he said, "the fall didn't break your hip. The break is what caused the fall. You have osteoporosis, severe bone loss. Your skeleton is fragile." Fragile, that word hung in the air. Arthur, this oak of a man, was now fragile. And that's when I started my journey. Because if it could happen to Arthur, it could happen to anyone. To my parents, to my aunts and uncles, to me one day. I became obsessed with one question. How does a strong body, over time, become fragile? What are we doing, perhaps unknowingly, that's silently weakening the very framework that holds us up? What I discovered shocked me. It's not just about not getting enough calcium. It's about what we're actively putting into our bodies every single day that's actively leaching the strength from our bones. It's a silent siege, and most of us are unknowingly aiding the enemy. This is the story of that discovery. This is about the deadly foods weakening your bones after 60, and more importantly, this is about how to fight back. To understand the betrayal, we first have to understand the hero of our story, our bones. We think of them as static, like the framing of a house. But that's a dangerous misconception. Your skeleton is a living, breathing, dynamic organ. It's a bustling metropolis of constant construction and demolition, a process called bone remodeling. Meet the two crews that run this city. First, the osteoclasts. These are the demolition crew. Their job is to break down old, worn-out bone. They're not villains. This is a crucial process. It clears the way for new, stronger material and releases precious minerals like calcium into our bloodstream for vital functions like making our heart beat and our nerves fire. Then, we have the osteoblasts. These are the master builders, the construction crew. They rush into the sites cleared by the osteoclasts and lay down a tough collagen protein framework, then cement it with calcium and phosphorus, creating new, rock-hard bone. For most of our lives, from childhood through our late 20s, the builders are in a frenzy. We're accruing bone mass, building up our bone bank. Our skeleton reaches its peak density, its maximum strength. For a while, things are in balance. The demolition and construction crews work in harmony, a perfectly synchronized dance. But then, time begins to tip the scales. Sometime in our mid-30s, the demolition crew starts to get a little overzealous. The builders, the osteoblasts, start to slow down. They get a little less efficient. Year by year, decade by decade, we begin to lose more bone than we build. It's a slow, silent withdrawal from our bone bank account. For women, the menopause transition is like a financial shock to the system. The drop in estrogen, which acts as a protective shield for bone, removes the regulator from the osteoclasts. The demolition crew goes wild, tearing down bone at an accelerated rate. For men, the decline in testosterone is slower, more gradual, but the outcome is the same, a steady erosion. By the time we reach 60, this natural process has already put us at a disadvantage. Our bone bank account is lower than it used to be. But for many of us, we're not just making passive withdrawals. We are actively making huge, devastating withdrawals while simultaneously sabotaging the construction crew's ability to do their job. We are, through our diet, fueling the demolition crew with jet fuel and tying the hands of the builders behind their backs, and we do it with some of the most common everyday foods and drinks imaginable. Let's meet the first saboteur. It's one we often turn to for comfort, for energy, for that afternoon pick-me-up. I know. The morning coffee. The sacred ritual. For many of us, the day doesn't truly begin until that first rich, aromatic sip. I'm not here to tell you to give it up entirely, but I am here to tell you the brutal truth about what it might be costing your skeleton. The issue with coffee, and to a larger extent all caffeinated beverages like black tea and many sodas, is a double-edged sword. Edge 1. Calcium leaching. Caffeine is a mild diuretic. It encourages your kidneys to flush out more water, and crucially, more minerals, along with it including calcium. Remember, calcium is the primary building block of bone. Every time you drink a cup of coffee, you're essentially sending a tiny amount of your bone's building materials right down the toilet. Now, 1 cup doesn't do much. But think about it. A cup with breakfast, another at 10 a.m., a cup after lunch, an espresso pick-me-up at 3 p.m. It adds up. Over a day, a week, a year, a decade. We're talking about a significant steady drain on your mineral reserves. Edge 2. Absorption interference. This is more insidious. Some studies suggest that caffeine may actually interfere with the intestine's ability to absorb calcium from the food you eat. So, even if you're diligent about having yogurt with your coffee or a calcium-rich lunch, the caffeine might be putting up a closed-for-business sign, preventing that crucial calcium from ever making it into your bloodstream to begin with. It's a 1-2 punch. It pushes calcium out and blocks it from coming in. But again, moderation is key. The research suggests that the negative effects are most pronounced at levels above 3 to 4 cups of coffee per day. If you're a 1-cup-a-day person, the risk is relatively low, especially if you offset it. The real danger is the habitual, all-day caffeine intake that many of us fall into, often without even thinking about it. And this brings us to coffee's far more sinister, far more potent cousin. If coffee is a saboteur with a subtle plan, then colas and sugary sodas are the wrecking ball. This is, without a doubt, one of the most deadly enemies of bone health after 60, and its weapon of choice is phosphoric acid. Let's break down the chemistry of this attack. Our bodies maintain a very delicate pH balance in our blood. It needs to be slightly alkaline. When we consume something highly acidic, like phosphoric acid, which is used in dark colas to give them that sharp, tangy bite, it throws our system into a panic. The body's number 1 priority is to neutralize this acid to protect our delicate organs. But how does it do it? It needs alkaline buffers. And what is the body's largest storehouse of alkaline minerals? You guessed it, your bones. Your skeleton is literally a mineral reserve. So, to neutralize the acid from that can of soda, your body performs an emergency withdrawal from your bone bank. It pulls calcium carbonate and calcium phosphate right out of your bones, dissolves them into your bloodstream, and uses them to neutralize the acid. You are quite literally dissolving your own bones to balance the pH of a sugary drink. It's a biological betrayal of the highest order, but the assault doesn't end there. These drinks are also often loaded with sugar, which we'll get to in a moment, and they almost universally displace healthier choices. Are you drinking a soda with lunch? That's a glass of milk or a calcium-fortified orange juice that you're not drinking. It's a double loss, actively damaging bones while simultaneously avoiding the nutrients that could help them. The research is stark. Study after study has shown a strong correlation between high cola consumption and lower bone mineral density in older adults. It's not just a theory, it's a documented chemical reality. And while dark colas are the worst offenders due to the phosphoric acid, even clear sodas and sugary drinks are dangerous for another reason, which leads us perfectly to our next saboteur. Sugar. The sweet poison. It's in everything, from our desserts to our bread, our sauces to our so-called healthy snacks. and its impact on bone health is as pervasive as it is destructive. The first problem is, once again, calcium leaching. High sugar intake increases the excretion of calcium through the urine, much like caffeine does. It's another drip from our mineral reserve tank, but the more profound damage is caused by inflammation. When we consume excessive sugar, it triggers a process in the body called glycation. Sugar molecules bind to proteins and fats, forming harmful new compounds called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. And that's a fitting acronym, because they literally age you from the inside out. These AGEs are inflammatory terrorists. They wreak havoc throughout the body, and bones are not spared. Chronic low-grade inflammation is like a constant smoldering fire within your system. This inflammatory state actively stimulates the osteoclasts, our demolition crew, to become more aggressive. It's like throwing gasoline on their fire. At the same time, inflammation suppresses the activity of the osteoblasts, the builders. It tells them to sit down and be quiet. So, sugar fans the flames of demolition and douses the flames of construction. Furthermore, a high-sugar diet often leads to insulin resistance and weight gain. Excess body fat, particularly visceral fat around the organs, is not inert. It's metabolically active and produces its own inflammatory chemicals, creating a vicious cycle that further accelerates bone loss. Think of every sugary snack, every sweetened drink, every processed food high in added sugar as throwing a log on that inflammatory fire, a fire that is burning down the very framework of your body. And speaking of fires, there's another common dietary habit that acts like pouring water on our osteoblast builders. Salt. It makes food taste alive. It's essential for life itself. But in the modern world, we are drowning in it. Processed foods, canned soups, frozen meals, chips, crackers, cured meats, they are absolutely loaded with sodium. And for our bones, this is a silent crisis. The TEW mechanism here is beautifully simple and devastatingly effective. Your kidneys are responsible for filtering out excess sodium from your blood and excreting it in your urine. But here's the catch. Every time your kidneys flush out sodium, they take calcium along for the ride. It's a packaged deal. For every 300 milligrams of sodium, about 1 teaspoon of salt that you excrete, you can lose approximately 40-60 milligrams of calcium in your urine. If you're on a typical Western diet, you could easily be losing an extra 100-200 milligrams of calcium every single day just from your salt intake. That's a massive drain. Consider that the recommended calcium intake for adults over 60 is around 1-200 milligrams per day. If you're losing 150 milligrams daily to salt, that means you need to consume an extra 150 mg just to break even, to have any hope of your builders having any materials to work with. Most of us aren't doing that. We're running a massive calcium deficit, and salt is the accountant quietly approving the withdrawals. This isn't about not sprinkling a little salt on your home-cooked meal. The problem is the hidden sodium in the processed foods that make up so much of our modern diet. That's the real enemy. It's a stealth attack, leeching your strength away with every bite of a frozen dinner or a handful of pretzels. And while we're talking about things that seem healthy but can have a dark side, we need to address a dietary trend that has taken the health world by storm. Now this one is tricky, and I need to be very clear. Protein is vital for bone health. Our bone matrix is made of collagen, which is a protein. Osteoblasts, our builders, need protein to function. Studies show that adequate protein intake is crucial for maintaining bone density and preventing fractures, especially in older adults who often don't get enough. So, protein is not the enemy. The enemy is imbalance. The problem arises when we consume excessive amounts of animal protein, red meat, poultry, pork, without balancing it with enough alkalizing foods like fruits and vegetables. Similar to the mechanism with phosphoric acid, metabolizing large amounts of animal protein produces sulfuric acid and other acidic byproducts in the body. Once again, the body senses this acidic shift and sounds the alarm. And once again, it turns to its alkaline mineral reserve, your bones. calcium is pulled out to neutralize the acid, leading to calcium loss in the urine. This is known as the acid-ash hypothesis of diet. Animal proteins, grains, and cheeses tend to produce an acid ash when metabolized, while fruits and vegetables produce an alkaline ash. A diet heavily skewed toward acid ash producers forces your body to constantly mine your skeleton for neutralizing minerals. The key isn't to avoid protein. Please do not do that. Muscle strength is critical for preventing falls, and protein is essential for that. The key is to balance it. For every serving of chicken or beef, we need several servings of alkalizing foods, leafy greens, broccoli, potatoes, fruits. The traditional Western diet is often severely out of balance, heavy on the acid-producing foods and light on the alkalizing ones, creating a chronic low-grade acid state that slowly erodes bone. This leads us to our final saboteur, one that often flies under the radar because it's wrapped in a veil of virtue. Eat more whole grains. It's one of the most universal pieces of dietary advice, and for good reason. They're fantastic for heart health, digestion, and steady energy. But in the specific context of bone health, they come with a tiny hidden catch that we need to be aware of, especially if our bone bank account is already running low. Whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds contain a compound called phytic acid or phytates. This is a natural substance that plants use to store phosphorus. It's their defense mechanism. For humans, phytic acid is an anti-nutrient. This sounds scary, but it just means it can bind to certain minerals in your digestive tract and prevent you from absorbing them. Guess its favorite mineral to latch onto? Calcium. It also binds to magnesium and zinc, which are also crucial co-stars in the bone-building process. So, if you're eating a bowl of high-phytate bran cereal with milk for breakfast, the phytic acid in the bran can bind to the calcium in the milk, and you might excrete them both without absorbing the calcium you intended to. Now, before you swear off whole grains forever, hear this. This is not a reason to eliminate these healthy foods. The benefits of whole grains far outweigh this minor negative for most people. But for someone over 60 who is already struggling to absorb every precious milligram of calcium they can get, it's a factor worth considering. The solution is not avoidance, but preparation. Soaking, sprouting, or fermenting grains and legumes significantly reduces their phytic acid content. This is why sourdough bread, fermented, is a better choice for mineral absorption than quick-rise whole wheat bread. It's a small tweak, but in the delicate balance of bone health, every little bit counts. So there they are, the 5 saboteurs: excess caffeine, phosphoric acid, sugar, salt, and imbalance, from both too much animal protein and unprepared whole grains. It can feel overwhelming, right? It can feel like everything is out to get your bones. But knowledge is not meant to paralyze us with fear. Knowledge is power. Arthur's story doesn't have to be your story. This isn't a life sentence of deprivation. It's a roadmap to empowerment. Knowing the enemies allows us to build a defense. And a strong defense is built on 2 pillars: nourishment and lifestyle. Let's start with nourishment. We need to flood our system with the raw materials the bone builders desperately need. Calcium. This is the cornerstone. Aim for 1,200 milligorn per day. Don't rely on supplements alone. Get it from food. Think dairy like yogurt, kefir, and cheese, if you tolerate it. Canned sardines and salmon with the bones. Dark leafy greens like kale and collard greens. Fortified. Plant milks and tofu. Vitamin D. You cannot absorb calcium without it. It's the key that unlocks the door. Our ability to synthesize it from sunlight diminishes with age. Fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, egg yolks, and fortified foods are good sources, but most people over 60 need a supplement. Get your levels checked by your doctor. Vitamin K2. This is the traffic cop. It directs calcium away from your arteries, where it can cause hardening, and into your bones, where it belongs. Find it in fermented foods like natto, hard cheeses, and egg yolks. magnesium, and potassium. These support the entire bone remodeling process and help counteract acid load. Load up on avocados, bananas, potatoes, spinach, nuts, and seeds. Protein. Remember, it's essential. Include high-quality protein with every meal: Greek yogurt, eggs, fish, poultry, lentils, and tofu. Now, for lifestyle. Food builds the materials, but lifestyle provides the blueprints and the reason to build. Weight-bearing exercise. This is non-negotiable. Bones are living tissue that respond to stress by getting stronger. When you walk, jog, dance, or lift weights, you create tiny beneficial micro-stresses on your bones. This stimulates the osteoblasts to get to work. It's like sending a direct order to the construction crew: we need more support here. If you do nothing else, start walking every day. Strength training. This is even more specific. Lifting weights, using resistance bands, doing bodyweight exercises like squats and lunges. This is the most powerful signal you can send to your body to preserve bone and muscle. It tells your body this structure is still in use, we need to maintain it. Talk to your doctor. Get a bone density scan, DEXA scan. Know your numbers, understand your risk. Have an honest conversation about your diet and lifestyle. This isn't about achieving perfection. It's about making better choices more often. It's about having that 1 cup of coffee instead of 4, and making sure you have it with a calcium-rich meal. It's about swapping that afternoon soda for sparkling water with a twist of lemon. It's about reading labels for hidden sodium and sugar. It's about adding an extra vegetable to your dinner plate. It's about taking a daily walk. It's about deciding that your future self, the one who wants to garden, play with grandchildren, travel, and simply get out of a chair without a second thought, is worth fighting for. Arthur is in physical therapy now. Every session is hard. It's painful. It's frustrating. He told me last week, I'd give anything to go back 10 years and have someone shake me and tell me to put down the soda and go for a walk. It would have been